Hi everyone, I'm Cal Spriggs. Today I'm going to show you how I got an Alpha Legion Contemptor Dreadnought from Forgeworld, all painted up and tabletop ready. I picked up the Forgeworld Contemptor Dreadnought for the Alpha Legion in the Games Workshop Grand Narrative 2022, and I really wanted to have this finished up and painted for the narrative event this year. Now, Forgeworld is sort of notorious for being resin, so it requires a bit of extra care and attention, but I love the detail on this kit. It's got these hydras and snakes and serpents everywhere, a lot of really cool inlay, just a ton of detail work. One thing that did disappoint me with this kit is it came without arms. It has the shoulders but not the arms and any of the weapon options. I wish they'd let me know that when I was buying the thing, especially since I bought it in person. But it is a very posable kit. It's really cool. It's what I think they based the plastic Contemptor on. So I took a lot of time here posing it up, kind of getting it ready. I built up a base for it, so he's a little bit more dynamic than on the flat ground. And I really tried to make this a bit more imposing than he otherwise would be. Ironically, basically as soon as I had this guy finished, the new Space Marine Codex released and Contemptor Dreadnoughts are no longer in it. So I just ended up fielding him as a normal Dreadnought. They didn't have any problems with that at the event. But I wanted him Captain Morgan style, posed up on this rock, one knee flexed a little bit, looking as if he's striding forward. There's a whole lot of carefully making sure things were in the right spot and lining up right. He's got his little knees and kneecaps that you have to kind of get posed exactly right for everything to line up. But no complaints about how it lines up. Everyone, I'm sure, has heard complaints about resin models in general. There's a lot of issues with resin. The Forgeworld resin kits I've had otherwise have been kind of hit or miss, but this kit was really well put together and no complaints about it. Now, when you're doing this, I highly recommend that before you start assembling, you give it a good wash in soap and water and use a brush of some kind to kind of scrub the mold release agent off the resin, because otherwise you're not going to have the paint stick real well. Especially if you're going to be playing with it and it's not just a display piece, you definitely want to be doing that, because the mold release agent, when you go to prime it, the primer won't stick even if you use spray paint, or it won't stick well. So you'll have a painted model and then you'll brush it against something and everything comes off. It's a real pain. But there you go. You can see it fully assembled. And this is kind of where I was a little frustrated, because he's got the shoulders, as you can see, but he doesn't have those elbow pieces that are a bespoke piece. So I put his kneecaps on, and then he just kind of sat for a couple days as I figured out what to do about those missing elbow pieces, and then the weapon systems, of course, as well. Now, you can buy the weapons straight from Forgeworld on their website. The problem I had with that is I'm in the United States, so trying to get that in time for an event was going to be problematic. So I searched eBay, I searched some 3D prints, and eventually I found just the elbow piece as a 3D print and printed that out. And I had enough weapon options from the other Contemptor set that I had. You can see those elbow pieces on him as he's primed. That combined with my other Alpha Legion Contemptor, I was able to give them both complete weapon sets. Now, my other Alpha Legion Contemptor, you can see I did kind of the red and green because he's transitioning, but this one I wanted to be full out Alpha Legion because that's what he is, right? He's got all the cool symbols and iconography. So I started painting this guy with this really cool turquoise contrast paint. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but the main thing here was getting coverage everywhere. There's so many little details and stuff. I left those plain because when I primed him, I went into this thinking I'd do contrast paints for everything. And with this, it was really a matter of getting coverage everywhere, getting all the little areas of his armor. Basically anywhere there wasn't some kind of icon or something, I went with this green. And it really is, it's basically a perfect color for Alpha Legion. And it's a neat kind of blue-green shade anyway that I like anyway. And this took a while. I'm using a relatively big brush, but it's a lot of surface area on this guy, and it took a while. I think it was close to an hour and a half of me painting his armor here. Sped up, of course, with the powers of fast forward for you viewers. And since I have you here as a captive audience, here's a great opportunity for me to remind you to like and subscribe. I see all you viewers out there, all 50 to 100 of you, so please feel free to give it a like and subscribe. That helps other people find the content. Now, as I said, this took quite a while. I actually think I started in the evening and took it up again the next morning, continuing to paint. When you're using contrast paints on large surfaces like this, like vehicles, be sure you're closing up basically on a solid panel so that you're not taking it up the next day or taking it up at a later time and that you end up with kind of an obvious seam where the two paints are overlapping. Just a little bit of technique I've learned from using contrast paints. When you're doing this as well, especially if you want to go back like me and you want to basically do some non-metallic metallics, be sure you do leave those spots that you want to hit blank. So basically the spots that you're wanting to look like a metal, you want to leave those blank for now, because this Achillean green is the name of this contrast paint. It's very saturated color, and it'll, if you try and put gray over it, it'll come through, especially the contrast gray. So just save yourself a little bit of time and try and leave those spots off while you're painting it. I had switched, as you can see, to a finer detail brush to try and get the contrast paint just where I wanted on all of his engravings and iconography here. And like, the more I painted this guy, the more details popped out. It was really cool with the hydras on his torso and the stuff on his shin guards and his shoulders. It's everywhere. There's just a ton of detail on this guy. They clearly had a blast modeling this miniature. While I was painting him, I had a couple YouTube videos playing, just something to keep my brain busy while I could focus on painting and kind of zone out while I painted. His back has way less detail, which made it a bit easier to paint, but it also made it kind of monotonous. The shoulder pads, I kind of left the shoulder pads as a reward for myself for getting the big flatter areas painted, because I could kind of go back to those and paint the details. I'd love to hear from anyone else what they do to keep their brains busy while they're doing the painting. I tend to find it pretty meditative, and actually, to be honest, this one, it took a while time-wise, but I enjoyed most of it just because there was so many little cool details on the model, and it's a model I've wanted for years, even before I had an idea of playing Alpha Legion. I wanted to get the model because I just love the look of it. But what do you all do to keep busy, to keep going while you're painting? Depending on the day, I find that painting is also a good way for me to spend time with the family. My wife can be in there hanging out. We could be listening to an audiobook or watching a movie, and my son can be working on some of his models and doing some painting. I like encouraging him when he's working on that, like encouraging his creative side as he thinks about how he wants to paint his guys. So painting can be a family endeavor, or it could be a solitary endeavor, depending on your situation. I gotta say, one thing I like about the Contemptor Dreadnought is it's far more humanoid than the traditional classic Dreadnought. It's almost like an oversized set of Terminator armor, whereas the traditional Dreadnought, the box Dreadnought, is far more blocky, far less human, far more vehicle-like. So it's easier to imagine some person being, embedded in this big construct and then being unleashed upon the enemy and going to war. Now, once I'd finished getting the Ankyllian green all over it, I then went in with some Space Wolf Gray and started doing all the metal details, getting at least one coat on this. I ended up, I think, doing 2 coats on a lot of it because the Space Wolf Gray that I use doesn't have as good of coverage as a contrast paint on these larger areas and larger surfaces. It does really well on the small details. You can see I can knock out the shoulder with basically 1 coat, but on the larger surfaces, on the big sections of armor that and trim that I had to get, it didn't do as well, so I had to do some extra coats. But I really like Space Wolf Gray when I'm using contrast paints for making a metallic looking object without making it just too bright in relation to the rest of the paint job. Going back through, this guy was actually really quick. Just doing all the armor, the contrast paint, I love that it kind of settles into the different cracks and crannies and really pulls that detail out, especially on the scales of the hydras on his armor. And it does a fantastic job of showing the height variances through that. And then I can go back later and do a dry brushing to really kind of make the top layers pop if I want. With this guy, doing a lot of the back was, again, kind of the boring part because all the cool details are on the front, which, I mean, makes sense because that's the nicest part of the model, right? That's the thing that pulls you in. With the back, it was mostly just putting it on all the exposed metal for the backs of his legs and the butt and the engines. So, again, very easy model to paint. It just took a while because, again, it's got a lot of detail. Again, while I was painting, I tried to leave myself some of the cool details for later to paint so that I could, have the enjoyment of seeing it all come together there at the end. I had magnetized the elbows so I can swap out the weapon options. I've already pre-magnetized those weapon options from the other Contemptor kit, so I have a variety of weapons that I can slide on there and swap things in and out. And as I finished them up, I went and hit the base with a quick contrast dark brown and got him ready for the tabletop. And I was really impressed with how he came out. You can see him here with some of the gun options on. His eyes I painted a red, and then once I got him on the tabletop with his brother Contemptor, he just really pops. I love the detail. I love kind of the looming presence that he provides at the back of my warband. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed my how-to on painting this Forgeworld Contemptor Dreadnought. Thanks for watching.